Greetings, friends and fellow rebels. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the negative side of things and where to get your information about spiritual gifts. And we talked a bit about the metaphor of if we were like a computer, which we are not, but if we were, how our hardware, our bodies, both the physical and the astral, can be configured to respond in a specific way to specific input. Just like the hardware on your computer can be configured for certain tasks. Say you have a gaming computer or a work computer or a personal computer. Each one has its own specific, special abilities based on what you have put into it, what you've installed, or how you have put it together. So we have specific filters, we have specific um, ways of responding to our environment, to what the input that comes into us, and you have to consider that when you consider the source of the information that you're given. Now, I talked a little bit about a gentleman who had, as a child, been pulled into the darker side, and I'm using the word dark to mean what is hidden and what is not owned, what is not responsible. Uh, those folks who practice in the shadows, in that they are doing things they know others would disapprove of, and so they will not own or claim what they do, and what they're doing is criminal and harmful. I'm setting that aside from the so-called dark arts, which are more dealing with shadow work and dealing with the primal forces of the planet, which are not necessarily destructive and can actually be used for good to help people and to help the community. I'm separating that out. Uh, this person had been involved in or been forced to experience some very despicable and soul crushing acts. And as a result, it affected him so that his experience of spirit and of source and of interacting with that world is quite a bit different from what a normal person's would be, or what someone who was equally sensitive and capable, but who had not been exposed at a young age to something that traumatic. It does indeed mark you. It marked him. My experience with people who have had that kind of background is that they are very capable of anything that requires destruction, that requires force, that requires an ability to uh, be separated from others. You know, when it comes to shielding, when it comes to attacking, when it comes to that kind of dominating, you know, manipulating, that they can do. But when it comes to healing, when it comes to creating, when it comes to um, obtaining an understanding of others, of what their motives are, what they are, aside from manipulating them, when it comes to getting a deep understanding of someone else, they fall short. And sometimes it's completely impossible for them. So there's pros and cons, but someone who is on that spectrum, on that side of the spectrum, cannot discuss, understand, and know what it is to be working as a normal on your spirit and as somebody who's from the other side of the spectrum on your spirit. Different rules apply. So, getting your information from someone like that, what he has to say, only applies to someone who's also working that spectrum. Okay, we talked about that. But I want to add something else. I read a book quite some time ago by a woman who she worked with a healing shaman, and she was convinced, she became convinced later in life that he was evil, or what he did could have come from evil, because some of his patients, the the physical problems that they have would reoccur. Once that he would heal them, but then the problems would reoccur. And she saw that as proof that what he did was evil. I suspect that if you are convinced, based on your early childhood indoctrination, that anything that didn't come through specific religious channels that are spiritual gifts must be evil, that you might come to that conclusion. But the truth is, when you perform a healing with someone, what you're really doing is straightening their spirit out and removing parasitic and binding influences so that the energy from source can flow through them and heal their illnesses. If they go back into the same environment, the same situation, or commit the same action that caused the problem in the first place, the problem will come back. And that is why, I'll use it for instance. In the Christian doctrine, when Jesus would heal someone, he would tell them, go and sin no more. Meaning, don't get back into the same situation that caused that problem. If a person's unable or unwilling to change what caused their issue, yes, it will occur. But that doesn't mean that the healer or the healing is wrong or evil or dark or any of the rest of it. It just means that as a healer, there's only so much you can do to help someone. Half of that process is their own. You can straighten them out and help them find their way. But unless they're willing to do what it takes to maintain their healing, it's going to be short term. And it doesn't make the healer wrong or evil. It doesn't mean that what they're doing is coming from demonic sources. Let me point something out. One of the reasons that highly spiritual people who were not owned by a religion, completely dedicated to it, completely bound to it in some way, or vested in it, they can finger those who are in that religion who are compromised. And often those people are in very high positions. They use a religion to hide their activities, to legitimize their activities, and to get the support of their community. They're never questioned. Their actions aren't questioned because of who and what they are. So they do not want someone who's intuitive, who's psychic, who's gifted, who can see through their ruse and point out to others what they've been doing. So they demonize those people. If they can't control those people through the religion, through the community, in some form or another, and keep them quiet, they will demonize them. Which is why, when you have someone who's outside of a specific religion or organization that's been sanctioned by powerful people who are often also corrupted people, they're going to be on the margins. They're going to be at risk of being defamed, of being downtrodden, of being cast out and shunned. They're a big threat. The rebels of the world, they're a big threat. Something to think about. And welcome to the woods.